Go back to Poland. Sidney Edison said gardens are a form of autobiography, and that certainly applies to Jan's life and his life here in Northeast Wisconsin. As an owner of Mayflower Nursery and Greenhouse since 1996, Jan brought an old world gardening flair through Mayflower and offered unusual annuals and perennials to gardeners here. Flowers were his paint, and the garden was his canvas. With Jan's passing in 2011, his family and friends thought it appropriate and fitting to preserve his legacy here at Green Bay Botanical Garden. He was a good friend and generous patron to GBBG, and we're grateful for that. The patio and the Wos Garden provide the backdrop for events nearly every day here at GBBG, from weddings to garden events to corporate meetings, yoga classes, and more. This garden, you see, celebrates the horticultural legacy of Jan. He had a magical way of capturing the gardener's imagination through the whimsical use of colors and forms in plantscaping design. For example, the planted picture frames were a signature item at Mayflower. The conifers surrounding the garden include weeping forms and varied-sized plants, giving homeowners new twists on the screening theme. Almost 600 ornamental perennials are planted in the garden in a naturalistic style. Containers on raised pots and even a planted piano pay tribute to Jan's creative spirit as well as his philosophy: if it doesn't move, plant it. We are grateful to Mayflower for continuing to be such a great partner to GBBG, providing us with these gorgeous planter containers as well as some of the plant materials at an affordable cost. At this time, I invite some of Jan's friends and colleagues to come up and say a few words. We're going to start with Barbara Bushman.
And Jim.
And Jim Rivet.
You go first.
All right. Jan Wos, a visionary and educator whose personal philosophy was to think outside the box and never accept mediocrity as an option. Honest, humorous, fun-loving, and generous to a fault. It all began over 30 years ago when Charles Schrader and Jan met at the University of Wisconsin in Madison while both were attending a symposium. Charles and Jan were reunited when he arrived in Green Bay and went to work for the Schraders as their head grower. Jan developed a relationship with the Otto Schrader family that lasted a lifetime. On November 1st, 1995, Jan left Schrader's to purchase Mayflower Greenhouse. He was anxious to start indoctrinating Americans in the European tradition of gardening. Yearly trips to the flower markets in Amsterdam and Philadelphia kept him current and aware of where the industry was going. Always sharing, always educating. Jan lectured often at the Wisconsin Garden Expo and was frequently a guest on PBS's The Wisconsin Gardener with Sean Ryan. He held classes locally and traveled the state, encouraging gardeners to never be afraid of gardening. It's considered the usage of musical artifacts and weird plant combinations, like planting a grand piano in a 49 Packard, which actually had a water fountain in it. Two of his favorite mantras were, if it doesn't move, plant it. And if it does move, plant it faster. And they always put the root in the dirt. Me on the top, root in the dirt. Jan fervently believed in supporting the Green Bay Botanical Garden and donated his knowledge, time, and plants. Jan also underwrote the Garden Spring Symposiums. I would like to thank Gary and Lynn Schrader-Lore for making the Jan Wos Garden possible. It is a wonderful tribute to a true Renaissance man. And thank you to Charles Schrader for recognizing Jan's many talents and bringing him to our area. And Jan, thank you for raising the bar for gardeners everywhere. Dziękuję, Jan, z tego I've got a letter from the Wos family. Dear ladies and gentlemen and friends, we are very sorry we cannot be with you today to be part of this ceremony and to share with you wonderful memories we all had of Jan. We are very thankful for your remembrance and for keeping in your hearts his love and appreciation for gardening. He was always very appreciative of your help and support. He called the States his homeland. Plants were his life, and you, dear friends and customers, were his sun. He moved from Poland to Green Bay, and as a seed in new soil, he slowly grew his roots here. breathing your joy, sharing laughs, and making all our lives more colorful with flowers and advice that you can plant a plant in anything you want as long as it's not running away. He was a joyful man, thanks to you, because over the years, you, dear friends, became his family far away from his motherland. Thank you for being here for him for so many years, and thank you for not letting him go and for keeping him in your hearts. Thank you for this honor, for naming the garden in his name. He would be so happy. We can imagine his wonderful wide smile up there modestly grinning. Thank you for Jan Borstel.
I guess I'm Jim Rivet, but I'm gonna also say that I was Jan Vos's acting manager. I always got to direct him in the commercials, which was always fun. He was up for anything and just had a great sense of humor. Didn't mind making fun of himself and was just really a great guy. But anyway, everybody knows Jan was really charismatic. He was creative. He was visionary. And I just keep wondering what he would accomplish in another 20 years if he had that. I know it would have been fantastic, even more than what he created so far. But you know, everything about Jan was so, you know, he was kind of over the top. Everything was very dramatic and very theatrical. He had that sense of just wanting to do great things, and that's what was so fun working with him. And one of the things I think he liked the most about today was that there's so many of the employees that were with him are still at Mayflower, and I think that's just would make him so happy. And I think that's John and Chris have allowed that to happen, and I think that's a special gift. So thank you for you guys for all working and staying with Mayflower. I think that's really amazing. Sometimes I would go out there after my job, you know, running an advertising agency, and I'd sit at Jan's table and he'd feed me all this Polish food and stuff, and we'd talk about managing a business, and although we didn't agree on how people manage, we had polar opposite views of how to do stuff, we were still always open and respectful and would talk and share ideas, but he loved talking about possibilities. I think what was really cool was that he was open for anything. He just wanted to try things. He was almost fearless. I think he broke new ground in no pun intended, but in how to market Mayflower, or, you know, Mayflower. He was fearless. He just wanted to try new things, and that's what was so funny. He let you run with stuff, and I just really valued that time that I had with Jan. It was always a fun time hanging out with him and getting to see where his ideas were going. And then one of the best things about Jan, I mean, he was the patriarch of the Polish community in this area. He really was the leader, and his parties were like no other party. They were a celebration of joy, laughter, dancing. All I can say is they were sheer joy every time you went out there. The greenhouse was open. He was accepting of everybody. He wanted you to bring your friends. It was just like this big communal. I always call it the greenhouse effect. It was a different greenhouse effect, but it was a really positive greenhouse effect. They brought people together and they had fun. And I don't think there's been that same kind of party in Green Bay since it happened. And I'm hoping that we can kind of get back to that. But anyway, I think today this garden, Gary and Lynn, thank you for helping make this possible. And Susan, Green Bay Botanical Garden, this is amazing. I think Jan would be smiling very happily on the way it looks. It's also a great source of inspiration for people to come out here and be inspired, how Jan was inspiring to so many people. And I guess the one thing I would have to say about Jan is, you know, with all of this, if you ask Jan how this would be, he goes, never been better. So thank you very much.
Well, Jan will continue to live on in our hearts and here at Green Bay Botanical Garden. And I invite all of you to come out often and remember him with us. We have a nice sign about garden architecture and design with Jan's picture and a little bit of history about him that will, again, stay and live on for years and years to come here at Green Bay Botanical Garden. I now invite you to join us for our Santa Max Concerts at the Garden series. Those of you who are members, your admission is free. Those of you who are not members, I have passes for you. You're welcome to go in, find a bench. If you've brought your own lawn chairs, find a place to sit. We have food available through Alpha Delights as well as beverages. And Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Hi, yeah, how are you doing?
Good, good job.
It's a top shot.